my name is Pablo Munoz. I'm a concept and character artist, and today I'm going to walk you through my process of prototyping characters using Character Creator 3 and the connection with ZBrush. So one of the things that I found to be really useful is the ability to very quickly modify and change the body proportions of a humanoid character or a biped and send it over to ZBrush, continue the entire process of sketching and developing the concept of a character in ZBrush, and then send it back to Character Creator to get a pose out of it very easily, very intuitively as well, and then send it back to ZBrush to finalize and fine-tune the pose. So that's basically the walkthrough that I'm going to be showing you today. So I have Character Creator 3 here opened up, and this is the default project. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Content tab here on the left-hand side. And I'm not going to walk you through the entire UI. For the most part, it's very intuitive, and everything has some sort of icons that are pertinent to the section that you're in. So in the content area, I'm going to select the base meshes, and here you have template or you have custom if you have any custom meshes. So I have one here, a stylized bulky guy that I did a while ago. So with the template selected, I'm just going to click on the base mail, drag it in here, and I'm going to update the morph and the texture as well. So you can tick this off if you don't want to update the morph and the textures of this character. So it's basically going to change this male character, but it's going to sort of keep it very similar to what you have here with this female character. In this case, I'm just going to apply both and wait until Character Creator does its thing. And there we go. So it's a bit silly now. I'm going to get rid of the bra and the underwear. So I'm going to go to the Scene tab here, and you'll see we have these two pieces of clothes here. So I'm going to just select them and press delete on my keyboard. We don't need that at the moment. And you have a few icons here where you can toggle, for example, the texture mode, just to smooth if you want to work with without the texture, or wireframe as well. So I'm going to toggle this one on so you can see it has a pretty decent topology for deformation as well. So it's very easy to, once it's back from ZBrush, when you have done all the details, to basically pose this character and get a pretty decent pose out of Character Creator. So I just wanted to show you the fact that you can see the topology. And one of the things that I should mention at this point is that you have to work with this topology. In other words, once you send it to ZBrush, you cannot alter the topology in any way. Otherwise, when you send it back to Character Creator, it's not going to recognize the same amount of points. That is not to say that you can add a ton of detail. It's just that you cannot extrude or delete faces and that sort of thing. But deformation-wise, like adding detail with the brushes in ZBrush and the move brush, that's totally fine. Now let's go back to the normal mode. All right. So here's where I can sort of like start exploring the software a little bit more and really have fun playing around with the proportions. So there are a couple of ways that I found to be very intuitive and very easily to pose this character. And those are within this modify panel here on the right hand side, or directly onto the viewport. So let me just push these down a little bit so we have a little bit more room to play with. So I'm going to start with the sliders, because that's kind of like the easiest way to get used to it and to learn what are the type of areas that you can deform. But as you can see, as I hover over different parts of the body, there is this yellow highlight that allows you to tweak things. All right, so I'm going to get to that in a second. So I'm going to start by selecting this morph tab here, the third one from the left, well, from the right as well, so the one in the middle. I'm going to click on that, and you'll see we have actor body, full body, arms, etc., up to the head and the parts of the body. So it is very intuitive. Like I said, you can select, for example, the full body, just selecting that tab, and you have a bunch of sliders that you can tweak. At the moment, it's using the Character Creator 3 base mail, so that's kind of like this muscular, sort of like athletic type of body. But if you wanted to, you can just turn this body into a gorilla type of thing. So just pushing this one forward, and you see some deformation here, but that's because we have two sliders all the way to 100. So I'm just going to take that back. Right, so this is more of a gorilla shape that is very, very, very fast to tweak just because we have two sliders. So this is kind of like an interesting one. Let's just go back to what we had, which is Character Creator base mail here. Right, so this is without any sort of like muscle deformation. I'm going to push that back to where it was, and you'll see it gets all that nice definition. But again, this is a very easy way to tweak, so we can just set that to bodybuilder, for example. It's a bit more muscular. You can go to the head. I'm going to totally destroy this in a second, but just to show you how fast you can tweak these things. So if I select the head here, right, I can just get a little bit closer. And I just move the eye, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm going to select the full head, right? So this is like the second level down, and we can just make the head thinner, change the proportions a little bit, make them less exaggerated with these sliders here, change the angle of the face. So all of these things are very, very intuitive, and it has that little icon that also helps you recognize what you're doing or what sort of area of the face or the body you're doing. There you go, something like that. So I'm just gonna show you my favorite method, or the one that I preferred using. So let me just go back to the full body, and I'm gonna go back to bodybuilder, and I'm just gonna set it to base mill. Okay. So again, you have a lot of control. Actually, before I move on, I'm gonna show you here around the ears, for example. If you select the ear here, you can change the angle of just the ear, the length, the shape, the earlobe, all those sort of things. So you have a very high level of control of different parts of the body. Just the head alone is pretty detailed. Anyway, so that's just a quick rundown of how you can tweak these things with the sliders. Like I said, I prefer to do it straight from the viewport. I found it a little bit more intuitive. It makes more sense to me, and I'm kind of like used to already. I already know what type of things I can tweak or change, so it makes it easier. So to change the size and the shape of different parts of the body through the viewport or directly on the mesh is very easy. For example, I'm going to select the head here at the top, and this control or this area of the head is just going to scale the entire head proportionally. So I'm going to click and drag up. That's pretty obvious, right? So that's we have now disproportionate head, but we can also increase the length of the neck. So we can select the neck, click and drag up. So this is what I meant, that it's a little bit more intuitive. It's basically, if I want to make the arms longer, I just click and drag in that direction towards the right, because I selected this arm, and straight away we have something that looks, more stylized. Now, you have like different ways to approach the modification of this body. So, like I said, very intuitively, if you click on the arm and you push it left or right, we're essentially scaling that, the length of it. But if you want to reduce the width or the circumference of this arm, you can do the opposite. So you can click and drag up and down, right, to make it very bulky or very skinny, and you do that with every part of the body if you wanted to. If I take the back, for example, here, I can just I can make these muscles very exaggerated, push it down, increase the torso size, and all that good stuff. So it's very easy to just come up with a more stylized character in a few minutes of playing around with the sliders. Obviously, this one doesn't look very good, but again, I just wanted to show you how quickly you can set up something like this. Now, in terms of the face, it's also very intuitive, and it's very fun to play around with the different shapes. I already showed you the entire head, but I can take the forehead and just perform the same actions. So up and down or left and right, and you see the forehead here changing the cranium slope, right? If I select the nose, it automatically selects the nose here. So I can just see which sliders I'm actually changing by clicking and dragging from this mesh. So let's say I can make the nostrils a little bit wider, select the tip of the nose and push it down. So very visually, and you also have the control if you want to tone it down a little bit from the sliders. Let's go ahead and give this guy a bit of a longer chin, maybe push the jaw down a little bit, push the cheeks forward a tiny bit more, make the ears larger, make them a little bit quirky, funny looking guy. Also, you have control over the eyes and where they're sitting, as well as the teeth. So just to show you how you can tweak the teeth area and the eyes, I'm just gonna go to the second tab here, which is the deformation or the posing of the character. So you can select this pose, click on Edit Facial or Edit Pose if you wanted to, and I'll get to that later on in another part of the video. But if you click Edit Face, you can select the eyes or any part of the face. So for instance, I can take the jaw, this part, and by selecting it, then I can go with the middle mouse button anywhere in this sort of black area or this section of the Edit Facial pop-up window, and I can just click and drag down, and you'll see how I move the jaw up and down. So that's just a quick way to analyze how well the teeth sort of are sitting within the face. So you can go back to the deformation tab or the morph tab and tweak that. All right. So I'm just gonna hit Control Z to undo that and close this window. All right. So again, this is just to show you that it's very quickly that you can set up a base mesh that kind of works. I'm gonna go ahead and show you the base mesh that I created for my character. So in the Content tab, if I go to the Morph Full Body, so this one right here, so you'll see under each one of these icons, you have sort of like sub tabs or sub areas. So under this one, I have one custom for full body. So I'm going to select that one. You have some presets. So you can just click on, for example, this cartoonish guy, click and drag that onto this one. And it's basically going to update the morph, but respecting all the texture and all that. So you can just add a heavy male. All right, so pretty easy to customize. And of course, once you set this up or once you have this base, you can go back and, completely change this again, make it fatter or a little bit more bulky and stronger, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to show you the custom one that I have. So it's this one right here. I'm going to click and drag that in here. And there we go. So this is kind of like my stylized character. I went ahead and basically following the same steps that I show you within the Modify tab, the Morph tab, and also grabbing from the viewport, I came up with this base mesh. Okay, so if it's closer, you see I also modify a little bit the face. I didn't want to tweak it too much, just want to get a more kind of like a square face, as well as making it very, very thin, especially here around the arms. And I wanted sort of like a bit thicker the forearms as well. That will help with the overall design. And once I'm happy with the tweaking of this base, which, like I said, once you get used to the way that it works, is very, very quickly, you can go to the Go See tab here, or the icon here, Go See, and this is basically the one that connects Character Creator with ZBrush. So all I'm going to do is click on the Content tab first, the Scene tab, and you'll see that I have the base selected. So I'm going to open this up because I have the eyes and I have the teeth as separate objects, which is always useful to keep them separate. So I want to make sure that I select everything together. So if I select just the base, it might present some issues because it's going to be only sending the base, and I actually want everything. So I'm going to hold Shift and select everything. So you'll see it's highlighted with a darker black color, and just click on Go See. I'm going to click on that. And of course, this is the first time that I'm going to send this base mesh to ZBrush. So by default, the Create option is enabled. If you already have a project in ZBrush, you can play around with the relinking option, but I found that just creating a new one works best, and then work in ZBrush as the master file until you're ready to send it back to Character Creator to posing. All right, so like I said, I have these three: the base, the teeth, and the eyes, and I'm going to create all of those. And here you have a bunch of different tick boxes that you can enable or disable. So the pose is kind of like for the end of the process, so I'm going to turn it off. If I turn this off, the pose that I'm going to get is this T-pose by default. And even if you have the character already posed and you tick this off, Character Creator is going to send this to ZBrush in a T-pose. So this is kind of like the ideal way to work before you have all the details in ZBrush. All right, so let me just double check. So split body parts, I want to have the eye winkers. Those are essentially the eyelashes. I want the tear ducts as well, a separate meshes or a separate pieces of geometry. And if you wanted to, you can just split the mouth interior and the eye sockets. I'm just gonna keep these two as part of the head, and the fingernails and the toenails. All right. So just with these two selected, again, this becomes kind of like a personal workflow. I found that the winkers and the tear ducts being separate objects works best for me. So I'm going to end up with 5 meshes. I'm going to end up with the eyes, the teeth, the base, the eye winkers and the tear ducts. All right, so I'm gonna click Go See. All right, and here we are in ZBrush with the base mesh. Just gonna change the material so it's easier to see, and I have a custom UI in ZBrush as well. So just to work a little bit faster, I'm gonna open up the subtool list, and I'm gonna show you. I said that we're gonna end up with 5 meshes, but actually we have 2 more because the teeth are split in 2, and we have also the tongue as well. So here are the eye winkers, which are kind of like these planes. By going to solo mode, these are the planes for the eyelashes, and the tear ducts here is kind of like where the lacrimal is. Okay, so that is all ready to go. All right, so now we have this nice topology that we can start subdividing and add all sort of details. I like to work with a very low res mesh or this low subdivision level before I go into details, just to do the large proportional changes. So I'm going to bring in the move brush, and I'm going to enable symmetry so that I can work in both sides, and I have the body selected. So this is the type of thing that I like to start working on first, just doing large proportional changes, and I'm not constrained about the placement of the details and that sort of thing. So I'm just gonna show you the end result of this tweaking process, or just the initial process of tweaking the volumes before going into details. So I'm gonna just load that project that I have ready. I'm just gonna select that body, and I'm just showing you the body on its own, so I don't have any of the subtools, but this is just to show you the difference between the base that I brought from Character Creator and the tweaks that I did within ZBrush. So I'm just gonna switch between the two so you can see. Actually, I'm gonna go into solo mode here as well. This is the base mesh that I brought so that you don't see the other ones, and I can just switch between the two, the original base and the tweaked version. So for the most part, the changes that I did are very subtle in terms of tweaking the anatomy a little bit so that it looks more stylized, fixing a bit of the general pose that this character has. It's very noticeable, especially around the head in the side view. So I'm just gonna get closer here and switch between the two. So you'll see it comes with this more trying to be a more realistic humanoid character. So I just went ahead and tweaked that. So I'm maintaining the same topology but creating a more stylized character, which is one of the things that I really like about this. So that is the base mesh that I came up with, or the one that I tweaked from Character Creator. And once I have these, all I have to do is to start subdividing the mesh and adding details. So I'm gonna get rid of the wireframe. You can see a little bit more of the details, right? And I have subdivision levels, as you can see here. I go to geometry. I'm gonna push this forward all the way to 5, and you'll see this is the type of geometry and the stylization that I was going for. Okay, so some of these edges around the pectoral and the deltoid and maybe the nose, the very sharp lines. Okay, and at this point I have detailed this model to a point that I'm happy with before going into the high frequency details or pores and that sort of thing. So if I get closer, this is still fairly clean, right? And if I enable polyframe, this is still based on the topology that came from Character Creator. So if I switch to the original base, right, it's gonna be different, obviously, because I tweaked the main shapes, but the flow of the topology is exactly the same. So this is just to show that it is quite flexible. You're not that constrained in terms of what you can move and what you can do. The constraint comes in the fact that it has to be kind of like a biped character in this case, or at this instance, and it has to be a humanoid form, but quite stylized and with different proportions. Alright, so now before I get into the creation of other assets like clothes and hair cards and that sort of thing, I just want to show you how quickly you can go from something like this, like a T-pose, to a more interesting pose in Character Creator, and then come back to ZBrush with all your details and work on the pose. So I just want to show you I still have all my details. So this is the version of the base mesh, right, that has the eyes, the teeth, the tongue, the eye winkers, all those sort of things, and they all have subdivision levels up to this point. So it's quite quite polished base mesh. And I'm gonna go into the low subdivision level. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on all here from the ZBrush tool palette, and that's going to take all of the subtools, send it to character creator so we can pose it. Okay, you can have this in high subdivision level, it doesn't matter. Character creator automatically is going to reduce the subtools to the lowest subdivision level. So just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to set this to a level 3 of subdivision, click on all, and here we are in character creator. So right now I have this pop-up that is asking me if I want to update the entire mesh and if I want to update the texture or just the mesh only. So in this case, I'm just gonna, because it is the same, exactly the same set of meshes, I don't have any new asset created or anything like that. It's gonna be fairly simple, so I'm just going to leave it as it is, make sure that the eyes, teeth, tongue, and body is updated, and I'm going to leave these adjust bone to fit morph. That is so that the new mesh or the new skin that I made in ZBrush or that I took in ZBrush is going to conform to the rig within the character creator, so that I can pose it. So I'm just going to click update, and there we go. So we have the tweaked version of the low resolution mesh from ZBrush into character creator. Pretty smooth transition, and what this allows us to do is just play around with some pose. So let's assume that I already have this character to a point that I want to pose it and finalize the final look in ZBrush. So obviously right now we have a low poly mesh. If I go to base and enable wireframe, yeah, you'll see it's still the low resolution mesh that we started with, obviously tweaked because we already went through ZBrush. But I'm just going to go ahead and pose this character. So I'm going to show you the process of posing this character with no assets, just as a way to explain how that works and how you can tweak and test things between ZBrush and character creator. It's a very simple and organic process to jump between software. But I'm going to click on this tab, the second one here from the modify panel, and you have edit pose and you have edit facial. So I'm going to click on edit pose, and I get this pop-up where you have basically these points that refer to the different joints here, and you can see an overlay of the rig in character creator, and it just makes it really easy to pose this character. So I'm going to select the arm, for example, and then you have translation or rotation here, so I can just rotate that hand, select the translation tool, move things around, and the hands use a system of an IK. So I can just push this way, and then the character is gonna sort of like follow. I'm gonna push this arm all the way, and you see how the rest of the body kind of like follows the arm. Rotate it around. You can also take the head, for example, move it like that. Select the other arm, push it down, and just gonna move a couple more things just to show you. Right, so something like that, very, very simple, but very quickly. You can also have access to the fingers, which is always one of the painful areas to pose in ZBrush, but this one makes it really easy. So you can select a finger here, or in this case, just this phalange of the finger, and rotate things around. So very, very intuitive, very easily to manipulate. Okay, you can also select bones directly from the viewport. So you can just double click them and then rotate things around if you wanted to. So, but now I'm just going to click this, or basically turn this off, right? So I have this character pose, but it's not the pose that I want. I'm just going to show you that you can also save a variety of poses and test which ones are going to work. And this is kind of like one of the reasons I found this very useful in terms of prototyping and figuring out what the pose of the final character will be, because you can visualize it here, send it to ZBrush, test and see if it's going to work, and then continue with the rest of the process. So I'm going to go to the content area, and you'll see I have a tab here for posing, right? So I'm going to skip this because I'm not going to do any skin, clothes, or accessories at this point. I just want to check that I can find a nice pose for this guy, and I can click on this one, and I have a series of poses that I have done for other characters. But it's very, very interesting because I can just click on one of these and assign it to this mesh. So I have this big body character, which is kind of like, big arms, very muscular character, but it's within my poses or my folder with the poses. So I can just click on this one and drag it into this character, and he has the pose of this muscular character You can see here in the thumbnail, maybe it's not that that obvious, but in the thumbnail this character has really big and long arms, very stylized, whereas this one is maintained quite well. So here we have a updated version of this character with an updated pose, right? That looks definitely much more interesting than that I did really quickly just to show you. But the great thing about this is that you can further tweak the pose and then save it in a different file. So I'm going to show you. This is another one that I did for another character. So I just created this pose as a base. In the case of this character, or the character that I did with this pose, you wouldn't see past the waist, so you only needed, or I only needed this. But I think this one is a good example to show you how to test these poses. So again, this is kind of like one that I did for a hero character, but you can also, I'm going to show you the fisherman. So the final one for this character is something like that. So even at this very early stage, without any clothes or anything like that, I can test how the pose is going to work. So I'm going to go back to this one, right? I'm not going to click on edit pose. So if I don't want to use this one, I can take the head, just move it to the other side, for example, right? So that changes things a little bit more. Close that, and if I want to save this pose, I just click on this button here, and Character Creator is going to save this pose, only the pose in the pose folder, so I can apply that to any other character. So there you have it. It's very easy to come up with a full library of different poses, even for a specific project, and then you can use those in other projects. Now the great thing about this is that now I can go to this scene. Again, make sure that you have everything that is part of the scene selected, and I'm going to click on Go See Again. So this time I'm going to change Create. I'm going to click Relink. I'm going to relink all of these to the previous character, and I'm going to make sure that I use Current Pose. So I'm going to click Go Z. And there you have it. So in ZBrush, once I send the pose to Character Creator, we have now the pose in ZBrush really quickly. But if I select the body, for example, I still have all my subdivision levels working super nice. So this is really handy for, again, testing and prototyping the character. And I can even use this pose as the final look of this character, right? Or the final presentation of it. So this is really handy. If I wanted to, I can just, add more details to the pose or change things here. And this is the point where I would, once I have the pose ready, where I come back and tweak the anatomy so that it deforms the way that it's supposed to. Okay, so obviously the back here needs some work. There's some muscles here that will be more obvious now that this character is sort of like with the shoulders pushed back. I would also smooth out the definition here in the pectoral area and that sort of thing. So this is kind of like the next step if I wanted to finalize this character. Now, before I get into this, I'm just going to show you the next step, or the next step of the workflow of this process, which is adding a series of assets, clothes, that sort of thing into ZBrush, and then sending them to Character Creator as new and generated clothes. Okay, so that will be in the next video.